Hello, I'm Sensei Kakuyo, North American contributor for Buddhist Global. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Ordinary Buddhist. The title of today's Dharma talk is Working in the Rain. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. It's raining here on the homestead. In fact, it's been raining for about 3 days now, with no signs of stopping. That's ironic given the fact that just a few weeks ago we couldn't pay to find a raindrop around here, and now we have small rivers running through the yard. That said, there's a lot of good things that come with having so much rainfall. The crops obviously love it. The grass is looking lush and green. All of the frogs and crickets and cicadas are very excited. At least they sound excited given how much noise I hear at night as they're all chirping and hopping about. And there are some negatives as well. It's a little bit harder to go out and feed the animals and do chores as I'm sloshing through the mud, working in my raincoat to get things done. One thing I noticed, however, is that life doesn't change that much based on the weather. The same chores I have to do when it's wet outside are the same chores I have to do when it's dry outside. The garden needs to be taken care of, whether that's having it being watered or being weeded, or sometimes there's a harvest that needs to take place. The animals need to be cared for with food, with water. I have to ensure that their shelter is up to snuff. When it's hot, that means making sure they have enough shade. When it's raining, it means making sure they have a place they can go when they want to be dry. So the weather changes, but the work doesn't. And this is important when we think about Buddhism, and specifically Buddhism's first noble truth, which states life is suffering. And there's lots of ways to think about that first noble truth, but one way to think about it is very simply to say that life goes on. The work continues. The world eventually will literally rain on your parade. But the chickens still need to be fed and watered. The garden vegetables still need to be protected and cared for. You still need to slosh through the mud in your raincoat to make sure that things go well on the homestead. Now, that's a very literal interpretation of the rain, but the rain could also be an achy back. The rain could be a car that doesn't quite run the way we want to. It could be a friend or neighbor who says something we don't like. Suffering will always come into our lives, oftentimes when we least expect it, oftentimes when we're least able to deal with it. But life goes on. We have to work through the rain. When I think about this, I think about the grim determination it would have taken someone like Gautami, the stepmother of the Buddha, to leave her royal position as a queen and follow the Buddha through the world until he finally allowed her to ordain as a nun. Imagine being a queen and having to walk through the mud, humble yourself to live amongst normal people on the slight chance that your stepson might let you join the Buddhist order. I think about the grim determination it must have taken the Buddha to sit under the Bodhi tree, to do spiritual battle with Mara, turning down the temptations of greed, anger, and ignorance in order to realize enlightenment. I think about the grim determination of Dogen, the founder and promulgator of the Soto Zen Buddhist school, and all of the warfare and bloodshed he dealt with while living in Japan. The sutras tell us that at some points the rivers were choked with blood near his monastery, and yet he continued to sit and stare at the wall. There will always be rain in life. There will always be unexpected hardships that we have to deal with. But our chores do not stop. The work does not stop. And as long as we continue with the work, we can be assured that eventually things will get better, even if the weather doesn't. Amitabha.